So the Democrats, this is where they're at. They're sending Kamala Harris at the problem. They have Joe Biden, this kind of, just ancient skeleton walking through this, saying the most ridiculous shit ever. We talked about that a bunch on the last episode. And that's it wasn't good. This is his big strategy is to do one more thing that punishes the American working class, or the American middle class, working class, regular Americans, because there hasn't been enough, Rob, over the last 2 years to fuck over the average American worker. Not enough. Sure, lockdowns were hard on them. Sure, corporate bailouts did nothing but put the little guy out of business. Sure, all of the mandates and restrictions and all of this hurt them, but now they can afford to pay a few bucks more at the pump. Now, will paying a few bucks more at the pump, will that end this war? No one's even claiming that. Will this achieve any noticeable goal? Will this really hurt Vladimir Putin? Certainly not. Will it hurt the average Russian? Possibly. And they can feel good about themselves. So it's worth doing it. It's worth doing it. Screw them. They can suffer and get poorer so that we feel like we did something. What that something is, not exactly clear. But that's where the Democrats are. But you know what, Rob? Don't worry. Because luckily in America, we don't live under a uniparty system. We have two parties. Okay? So the Democrats might be fucking up, but don't you worry, Rob. We got the Republicans, and the Republicans are led by Mitch motherfucking McConnell. And that dude's going to handle business. And we got a clip of him right now. Let's throw it over to Mitch. Let's see. Here's what the opposition says. No, Joe Biden, what you're doing is crazy. Okay? And we got another vision for this country. What do you got, Mitch?
Well, let me start by saying if I were the majority leader, we'd be on the Ukraine supplemental right now. It's been challenging to get our Democratic colleagues to do what I believe the Ukrainians need at this particular point. But where we've ended up is at $14 billion. In order to get to $14 billion, we actually had to prevent House Democrats from blocking loan guarantees to help Eastern NATO allies buy American aircraft.
Okay, pause it for a second, because I am at risk, as all of you are, of falling asleep. So
you actually just woke me back up.
This is not exactly what I was hoping for from the opposition party. So Mitch McConnell now comes out and says, what we're all thinking, right? Screw these Democrats. And you're like, well, why, Mitch? Because they're risking us getting into a nuclear war over a war between Russia and Ukraine, that we should be somehow, like, the entire world's population is worth putting in jeopardy over a country versus a country that was formerly a part of that country. However you feel about the war, that most people would be like, well, what's the other side of this? And the other side here is that he goes, we're pretty pissed at the Democrats because they're only letting us send $14 billion to Ukraine. And we had to work to get that. So the Republicans come in and they go, the problem is that we're not supporting Ukraine enough. Oof. Man, do the Republicans suck. That's what you got. That's your two-party system. Is one party goes, we, for whatever reason, with no clear explanation as to why this is beneficial to the American people, or why it is exactly that we care about supporting Ukraine. And when I say we care, from government policy point of view. Not saying you shouldn't care at all what happens to people, but it's like, you know, you can care for them, but you can also care for like a lot of things around the world. We ain't sending $14 billion to every place in the world where people are dying. In fact, sometimes we're sending billions of dollars to the people doing the killing in the places where people are dying, like Saudi Arabia launching a war of genocide against the people of Yemen with full support from the American government. So anyway, but in this case now, the Republicans' counteroffer is to say, we'll send $14 billion because that's all we could get. Think about this, Rob. The Republicans are calling out the Democrats for not being big spenders the way the Republicans would have them be. Oh, don't you wish we just had a complete... I mean, I swear, like, this is why, people give me shit sometimes for being in the Libertarian Party. And they'll be like, Dave, I know, I get what you're saying. And the Libertarians are right about all of this stuff. But, you guys are going to get the Democrats elected. You got to just jump on board with the Republicans, and then you see like what the Republicans are doing. And it's like, I don't know. So I got to jump on board with the Republicans, because if we just had an all Republican Congress and a Republican president, we could send way more than $14 billion to the Ukrainians. Wouldn't that be great? Well, Americans are at the most vulnerable place they've been in my lifetime. Send $14 billion in, money. Is there an argument attached to this, Rob? Like, this will make the difference where they can win the war? Or is there an argument that somehow this is in America's interest? Or is it just like we want a bigger number to send to them? That also, by the way, is crossing another one of Putin's red lines. He kind of did say that if other countries start interfering in this conflict against Russia, that then he's willing to go nuclear. So we're risking nuclear war for something with the benefit of question mark. No one really needs to fill that in. We'll fill that in later. But let it be known that whatever the Democrats are willing to send, in this case, a measly $14 billion, Mitch McConnell was willing to send more. I hope everybody got that on record. This is the party we're supposed to be persuaded to jump on board with. I'm hesitant.